I'd say that it's better for you than what you're currently taking for pain relief, and that it won't hurt you. You won't have any side effects to speak of. And it's probably the best bang for the buck overall. You know, it's a matter of getting past your fear or your skepticism as to whether or not it'll work. Well, we get them past the fear by telling them that they don't, if it doesn't work, send it back. Okay, we give them a 30-day, no holds barred return policy. Then if it becomes an issue of is it going to hurt me? Well, then if it is, you better stay out of that puppy that's outside there for this. So all the reasons we just talked about. The energy from that solar source overall is greater than the warp 10's output, but at the specific wavelength we're working at, the warp 10 puts out more energy than the sun at that point. But if we look at the total spectrum from ultraviolet to far infrared, the sun puts out roughly a kilowatt per square meter. That's about the top of a card table. Okay. Now you can understand why when a card table sits out on a picnic table in July and the top gets so hot, that's what's going on. And it's a tremendous amount of energy. It's just we don't use it all. Okay. So that's how we get past the fear. All right. We also get the question of whether or not it's working, because
that was my next question. I'll definitely use it. How do I know when it's working?
Because there's no heat. There's no heat, right? And all we're doing is giving you energy. But you get past that about the first exposure, because they can feel the energy exchange inside the body. You don't feel it on the surface like you would from a heat lamp. You can actually feel the energy exchange, that your muscle tissue and the blood absorbing the energy. Once they do that, then it's a piece of cake. It's just a technology, I think, that we've lost. You know, when Finson got his Nobel Prize in 1902, okay? He got it for eliminating lupus, which is kind of a skin disease, using red light. And then he did some bacterial work with blue light. And up until the Second World War, a lot of leg ulcers on soldiers, and burns of one kind or another, were actually they used blue light to mitigate that. It wasn't until penicillin came out that we started to see antibiotics that light was dropped as a curative, and they went on to try the chemical world. Okay, and guess what? The chemical industry is a big deal, because that's controllable, and light isn't really controllable. Okay, and besides, the major source is free. Right. If you got the time to sit out there and sun yourself and make sure that you're not absorbing a lot of UV, that's the perfect source. But the trouble is that in today's world, we can't afford the time to sit out there and experiment, right? So for instance, a warp 10 gives you a little better than 10 times the solar equivalent of that wavelength, and it delivers it to you now. It delivers it to you in 80 seconds. If you would have to sit out there, there's less than 4 milliwatts. That wavelength in the spectral distribution of the sun only represents about 4 milliwatts. So you'd have to sit out there for a good hour to get the same amount of energy and make sure no clouds come by and all the other kind of good stuff. So I think what's happening to us today is that we've been scared to death of the ultraviolet death, okay, right. Through, and in many ways, that's overkill. Because if we can, that energy only makes up, the total UVA, B, and C only makes up 4% of the solar spectrum. So again, we're back to 4 milliwatts, all right? Well, it's very active energy, and it tends to be DNA severing. It'll cut DNA. But if you find yourself a means to get rid of that wavelength, then the rest of the energy is good for you. And why we shy away from it, I don't know. But right, you know, we had a kid here the other day. We were talking to. His wife had sent us a letter telling us all the problems with. He's in a chair. He's paraplegic. Okay, and she says his muscles hurt him. His legs hurt him from time to time, and she's constantly massaging and trying to give him one kind of salve, I guess a bad word, but ointments of one kind or another to get rid of the pain, and to the point where she gets aches and pains because she's taken so much care of him. And when Robin was writing back to her, I says, tell her to take him out and put him in the sun a little while. You know, people just are shying away from doing that, and it's you know, we ran around for 250,000 years naked in this light source, and all of a sudden now we've become scared to death of it. Okay, and I think it's just overkill. It's skin cancer is scary, all right, but there's a way to overcome it. You know, if our chemistry people were smart, they'd give us a sunblocker that really blocked the bad rays and let the other stuff through. But you know, it's too expensive to build it, I'm certain. So we can build a LED and a laser the same way. Let's think of it as a sandwich, and where you put the peanut butter and jelly, that's where the photons are, and you got a layer on the top and a layer on the bottom, which is the bread. And if you cut one side at an angle and the other side at less of an angle, you can actually catch the photon inside of it bouncing back and forth until it finally gets enough velocity and gets lined up properly with everybody else. It gets squirted out to one side of the sandwich. Okay, that's laser. Okay, LED is solid state LED is the same structure without the bottom half of the sandwich. Okay, now the photons leak everywhere because we haven't got them caught up in this little channel. All right, so out they come and they spread out in what we call a 180-degree distribution. They look like a dome. Okay, we call it Lamberton for big term. All right, but essentially what it does is it generates in all directions from a flat surface. Both photons, whether they be running back and forth and finally escaping through a mirror, or escaping very easily right out through the top surface of the LED, or the crystal structure, are the same energy, same wavelength, have the same effect on matter. As a matter of fact, the laser takes you more energy to generate the photon, to get it lined up with its little buddies, what they call coherent versus incoherent with the LED. But there is no magic in a laser. Lasers cost money because they're very specific structures. They only put out energy in one nanometer wave bandwidths, okay? Where the LED puts out a 25 nanometer wide curtain or a curve. And if you're trying to turn on a biological absorber like hemoglobin's got a very wide spectral absorption. And a good portion of it is in the visible portion of the spectrum. The difficulty there is that the melanin in our system tends to filter it. That's what suntan is all about. That's melanin helping us attenuate the lights coming in. The difficulty with that is that if you got melanin there and you can't control the amount of energy getting into the body, you'd like to get outside of there. So we go over to the near infrared portion of the spectrum at 680, 670 nanometers. We have very little attenuation. We call it the window of wellness, but there is a window between 650 nanometers and 950 nanometers where the body does not provide any absorption facilities. And it's the same window that is used for pulse oximetry. They put a little thing on your finger when you go to the hospital, and it's got, if you look at it, it's got a red LED and an infrared, which you can't see, right? The detector on the other side. So they switch these two LEDs off and on, and by the infrared LED gives them the media absorption, or the opacity of your finger. And the red LED is absorbed by the oxygenated and deoxygenated hemoglobin, your blood. And by doing a little calculation, they can determine your pulse rate and your saturated oxygen, because they're going to measure one against the other. Well, the reason they can get away with that is there's nothing attenuating, with the exception of the thickness of your body at whatever point they're measuring it. Normally they do the ear or a finger. There's no material, there's no biological materials that would tend to attenuate the energy in there, so they get very good data. Well, use that same window and the same opportunity. It just turns out that the highest absorption criteria for blood is in that portion of the spectrum. Cytochrome C oxidase, which is the little character we were talking about in the mitochondria before, absorb in that portion of the spectrum. And we're finding other things that absorb in that portion of the spectrum. So it's obvious to me, just from the little limited scientific knowledge I have, that we were designed to use that portion of the spectrum. When you consider the sun's energy in that portion is very high. About 30% of the sun's energy fits in that window, all right? You say, wait a minute, somebody's trying to tell us something. Also, I think one of the real neat things is the work we did with NASA early on to grow plants in space, and the work we're doing today where we're trying to do healing. It's the exact same wavelengths that grow plants that we're using for our medical side of the equation, okay? Plants have two absorption peaks. One is at 680 nanometers, one's at 730, okay? Every photon from blue to 680 is downshifted in a plant to red, to infrared, okay? So the plant takes all these photons it gets and pushes them off the side. The only thing it uses blue for is to find the sun. It's an experiment you did in school at one point, where's the light? And to determine what the plant scientists call the hypercotyl, how high it comes out of the ground before it starts to break into leaves, all right? So I found it a pretty interesting coincidence, if you want to call it that we both plants and people, animals, fall into the same portion of the spectrum. And I think as we learn more, we'll learn how to use that spectrum better. But right now, it's a interesting curiosity. Well, I think I'd start out with telling them that over 105,000 people a year are brought to hospital emergency rooms for overdoses of NSAIDs, what we call non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, okay? And I think we lose 6,000 or 7,000 people a year that die from stomach bleeds, or intestinal bleeds of one kind or another. The Warp-10 has the exact same indication for use that you'll find on the side of a bottle of aspirin, right? Except for what? Yeah, we can't cure, we can't affect fevers, right? But as far as aches and pains, muscle strains are concerned, we have the same indication for use. There is no side effect from the light source. As the doctors say, there is no counterindication as to be proven thus far. And it's a lot more cost effective over the long term, okay? The way we package the Warp 10 right now, it comes with 2 sets of rechargeable batteries and the recharger. One set of those rechargeable batteries will give you 50,000 doses of light. That's 50,000 80-second doses. By giving you the 2 sets of batteries, you're up to 100,000 doses. If you look at some of the new COX-2 inhibitors, which are the new pain pills that are out there today, a 90-day prescription of those will more than adequately pay for the Warp 10 and its battery pack and shipping costs if you're here in the States. So as far as we're concerned, it's a better bang for the buck. If it doesn't work, of course, it doesn't do you any good. That's why we have the 30-day money-back guarantee. A little different, you buy a bottle of generic aspirin from the local pharmacy. If it doesn't work, you throw it away. We'll take it back and if it doesn't work for you. So I think it's applying a very interesting technology and without the side effects of what the chemistry that's out there today. The trouble is that the device looks so simple on the surface that anybody who's got a soldering iron and has a Radio Shack close by can run over, pick up some LEDs and say, I'm in the business. The reality is that the work we did early on with NASA made us very much aware of the fact that we had to have the right amount of photons, the right amount of photon flux to be precise. We had to essentially reproduce the sun inside the growth chambers. The wrong device for measuring the output of the LED is this little guy back here, because he has a very narrow spectrum that he's sensitive to, and this window I told you about earlier and the absorption of the plant life is outside, just about outside of the sensitivity of the human eye. So I can buy some cheap and dirty LEDs from Radio Shack and make you think they're really bright, but until you measure them, they're not. And we have a special lab here that does nothing but measure light and measures it to the National Bureau of Standards. And the minimum minimum flux density that Dr. Whalen has run his experiments at is 50 milliwatts per centimeter squared. Okay, that's half a sun. You know, when I talked about 1,000 watts, that would be 500 watts per meter squared, or 500 watts on the top of a card table. So the cheapies that are out there, we've seen people have one LED inside of a pen type package, okay, and tell people they're going to do the same thing we do. But if real close perusal of the competition's literature, you'll usually find one of our papers or one of our names or something, or NASA justifying their product. We have recently taken on a vendetta, for lack of a better term, but we're very focused on going after people who use that literature that we've paid for, that Dr. Whalen has copyrighted, and calling them on the fact that they don't have the copyright, or they're infringing the copyright. And that seems to be working for us. Also, we, if you look at our webpage, we tend to publish anything the FDA puts out because it's public domain on their inspection and rejection of claims for some of the competition. And it's buyer beware time. The last show we were at, people asked us why we were so inexpensive. Okay, because they were paying $7,000 and $12,000 for light sources that didn't work, but were purported to work. And one woman finally came back and she bought a unit from us, and she says, "Now what do I do with my $12,000 unit at home?" I says, "Get an anchor chain and a boat. Okay, go for it, because that's all it's worth." And you spent a lot of money and got shafted, for lack of a better term. So, but we've measured a lot of devices here. All right, it's a curiosity to us, because if you take a real close look at our device, we don't have LEDs, the common garden variety type of LED in our device, which is the little package with the little bulb on the top. Okay, our chips are mounted to a thermal sink. We do a very specific thermal exchange. We can work the LED at 3 to 5 times more input energy than the manufacturers would suggest for that little plastic bulb. Okay, so that's how you get the energy up to get it into the body. Number one, you have the minimum of 50 milliwatts. Our devices are all calibrated to that. We can even send out a certificate of compliance traceable back to NIST, National Institute for Standards and Technology. Okay, it's a government agency. Nobody else measures them. Nobody else even knows how to measure them. Okay, we are the light people. You know, so you want to buy something else? I'm sorry, but we'll stand behind our product. You know, a lot of energy and engineering put into what we put together. You know, when you consider that little Warp 10 uses 9.5 watts of battery power to produce a half a watt of optical power, and still keep cool and be able to run it the way it's designed to run, it's quite a little scientific accomplishment in that package.
You must be pretty proud of it.
Yeah, we're very proud of it. We're very proud of everything we've done in this area. You know, it's kind of a nice feeling to know that you can help people with something other than chemistry. And the neat thing about this product, it's reusable, right? I could see it having a major impact on the future medical expenses for Medicare, Medicaid, right? Once we get past the snake oil side of it, trying to sell it to them, but it's bound to have a tremendous financial impact on the industry. And it's been our experience that wherever we've worked with the photodynamic light sources, the people that are the governments that are the most anxious to apply the technology are the ones with socialized medicine, because they know they're going to save money if it works, and lo and behold, it does. So it's been an interesting side of the market that you see that nobody else can define, but we see that happen all the time. You know, actually the best photodynamic therapy drug comes out of Canada, and its applications were first in Canada. Why? Canada is driven by socialized medicine, right? They even sell drugs cheaper than we do here in the States. You know, so what would I tell you? Now, what's happening to us, and John Q. Sixpack is not aware of it, is that all the lights that are currently lighting up this room within the next 10 to 15 years will be substituted or put out of commission by LEDs. And if you're going to do that, and this is going to be your form of reference, all right, you have to have energy sources that put out energy that this guy gets turned on to. And to do that, you also have a problem with the brightness, because you have this little tiny chip that's the size of well, you put 20 of them on the head of a pin, okay? And you have to get enough energy out of him to make this room look like it is. So you do a lot of neat scientific things to the way the crystal's put together and the reflectant surface of the back, and some of the thermal management we talked about earlier. And you work toward getting the maximum amount of photons coming out of that little chip that you can to light up a domestic situation. And when you do that, you've done a marvelous job, but it's all based upon this guy's sensitivity, not necessarily a muscle's absorption characteristic or blood's absorption characteristic. So you use your spectsmanship and you say, I have a super luminous diode. And I say, whoopee, okay, because I have a super photon generator in the infrared portion of the spectrum. Much different. Mine will work, yours won't, unless you're talking about eye candy. If you're talking about eye candy, yeah, it's great, okay? So the fact of the matter is that the peak wavelength is green, and green is the most difficult wavelength. 555 nanometers is the most difficult wavelength to make in a solid state device. There is none currently available. We're either 540s, 690, or 590s, but we don't have any 555s.